Okay, awesome. This works now. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, hello. Thank you for coming, everyone. Welcome to our first in-person Senate with new senators. So welcome everyone who's new. We are going to call to open at 6:32 p.m. on Wednesday, October 6th. We have a non-traditional Senate today, which means that we actually do not have very many voting items, and in fact, we only have one, and that is minutes. But instead, we're going to be focusing our Senate on presentations, and we have two very, very special guests that will be speaking today, or really two special teams of guests. And we'll be beginning with the special team from the Dean of Students office. So before we go into that, I just want to clarify that the attendance will be taken by the minutes, or the attendance for the minutes will be taken via WebEx and via a sheet that we're going to pass around towards the end of Senate, so look out for that. If you need to head out early, just come to me so that I can have you sign the sheet so we know that you came and we can make sure that you're accounted for. And so we're going to move into public comment, which is an opportunity for our speakers to present. And we're going to begin with the Dean of Students office, so whenever you're ready, come on up. Thank you for coming. Hope that works.
Thank you. How is everyone? I'm sorry, I thought this was the group that threw off this incredibly cool rally today that raised major topical issues for our university and being an agent of change in the world. How are you today? Good. Okay. So actually they're all tired because I'm very well aware of the fact that many of you did not sleep last night. So I'm Ellie, I'm your Dean of Students. I'm really not going to talk about the Dean of Students office today, but more about my role and the people I work with in making sure you are surrounded by care and support from the university. And sometimes that's very visible as you make an appointment or make a phone call or see a hall director, but often that's very invisible as well. But one of the things that was very clear to us in early 2019, and again, this is a moment where our students chose to come forward and tell us what their challenges were, was that we were missing the mark with how we were approaching mental health. And the President Casaleas at the time commissioned a mental health task force that I co-chaired with the Dean of the School of Social Work. We had many faculty colleagues, such as Suzanne Honorado, who's right there, as well as students. I know we all appreciate the leadership that BDS did in the topic of mental health as well. She was a part of our work. And the answer that we came back with is if UConn wants to be amazing in caring about everyone and understanding the complexity of mental health, we cannot see this as something that we can resolve with an appointment or something that we can resolve simply by having more clinicians or strengthening one department of the university. That rather, we need to be a university that changes its culture. So one of the things we were just talking about was academic affairs, right? How do we work with our faculty to ensure that the workload you're given is one that allows you to do amazing in your calculus exam, where we don't compromise the academic standard of the university, but we also understand that we don't want you up all night sleeping. We want you to be sleeping and eating and cherished as students as you engage in the learning process. And so how do we culturally as a university create a community that embraces wellness as well as understands the mental health needs? And there is an employee issue here, but I'm going to focus on students because I'm your dean. So that is really what the committee came back with. You have also taught me how important transparency is. So all of the reports that came from the committee are available for you to read at the Project Wellness site. And we're going to focus on a couple of things today in how we make cultural shift as a university. My colleague Christina is going to talk about organizational changes specifically within mental health and how we were addressing concerns on access to care, the diversity and inclusive practice within our providers, how that is extended within our entire outlet within student health. And we have Dr. Honorado here, who oversees all of our student health and health promotion operation. We have Karen here to talk about how we educate and increase knowledge of student health and wellness more pervasively and the changes we've made there. And then we want to talk very specifically about the concerns that were raised about the transport process. What I mean by this process is, this is something that we do for students who are in crisis, where we need to intervene for their own safety. And the way in which we do that, and the manner in which we bring in the resources of the university to not have a confrontational setting, but has a setting where we can comfortably and responsibly make safe choices for the student, really matters. And we've changed a lot about how we do that work, and Claudia and I are going to talk you through that at the end of the presentation. Does that sound okay? All right. So we're going to do all that for you in 20 minutes, and then we're available for questions. We're talking about things that matter. We're also talking about things that touch all of us individually, and we understand that. And so to whatever degree you want to talk with us separately, or you want to email me and say, let's talk more, we are here for you, not just Wednesday night. I have to check what day it was in my head. Not just Wednesday night when you're tired and you're in the middle of midterms. We're always here. And every time we have made improvements, it's because we listened to you first, added what we know as professionals in our field, and did better. So just know tonight's a thing, it's a moment, but it's a reflection of us always being here. So if you want to talk with us more afterwards, we're here. Okay? All right, so with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Christina.
Happy Wednesday. Really almost happy Thursday. It's got to count for something, right?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Stevens. I'm the Director of Mental Health. My office sits over in Arjona. I'm a two-time grad of UConn, so it's a little weird to be in the Arjona building because I used to take my psychology classes there, so that's a little strange. But, so let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk fast because we know you have a lot of other things going on. Ellie just described a bunch of things we want to cover tonight, and really invite further conversations, follow-up questions, thoughts, recommendations, because that's really the most important part of this conversation. So what I wanted to do here was just provide a really important visual that we like to use because it's intended to convey the fact that what is offered at Shaw in the mental health realm is intended and designed to be integrated, to be customized, and to be student-centered. And the reason we laid it out this way is because we also wanted to convey the fact that it's not a linear process, right? Everybody in all areas of our lives have our own journeys and our own experiences. And so what this means is there's multiple pathways that you might want to connect with us. It could be something as simple as meditation or mindfulness or yoga, or it could be group work, or it could be, as you heard, crisis support. There's a lot of different ways in which you can connect that are going to best meet your needs. And sometimes you don't know what that is yet, right? So we always like to make sure that there's a lot of different opportunities so that you have a touch point that then you can consider what is it that you really need, what do you want, and how do we make sure we do that in a student-centered way. So I just wanted to convey that with this piece of work here. We can go to the next slide. So the reason this is data, and why data is important, you heard Ellie talk about transparency, and one of the things we're working on, and you're going to hear more about this when I talk about JED Campus, is really making sure that we're sharing information around what's going on, what's working, where we want to see improvements, and we want to be really, really transparent about that. And the work that we do is data-driven and data-informed. So that means we're not making decisions in a vacuum. We're not just sitting around and saying, oh, you know, that might have occurred, or we heard it with one person. We really want to ground it in what we're seeing and how we can, of course, correct when needed. And one of the things, I've only been here a short time, that we heard really clearly from 2019 was that access to care was challenging at best. And so that's top of mind, and it's something we pay really close attention to. So we wanted to just outline some of the shifts that we've seen. So we looked at data from the same period of time in 2019 and then looked at it for 2021. And so the first thing we saw was a 72% increase in screenings. That means we're seeing a higher volume of students coming in to at least start the conversation about what would be helpful to them. We also introduced something called rapid access. And what that is again, it's one of our pathways to make sure that we can get students in the door, we can assess and screen quickly, and then work together to figure out the right path forward. And then we wanted to just present some data around the wait times, because we know how important that is, right? support and services, they need it sooner rather than later. So our average days right now from call to screening is 2 days, and that's a 35% decrease from where we were in 2019. So we're happy to see that. That's one of those numbers we like to see go down. And then similarly, when we go from a screening into an assessment, and that's not for everybody, people again will have their own journeys through this process, we've seen a 51% decrease, so the average is 5 days for that. So these are numbers that we pay attention to. We pay attention to a lot of numbers, but we did want to give that update so that folks had it. The other piece of work, move to the next slide, thank you, thanks for driving by the way, is we wanted to talk also about our work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is one of those things that you heard Ellie talk about, a community of care. We're also thinking about this in a very holistic way. And so, there's much more detail here, but what we wanted to really think about was a multi-pronged approach, because we can't have one solution and hope that that's going to work for everyone, right? So we came at this from a perspective as we have to think about this in terms of overall staff training, we have to think about it as recruitment, and we want to think about the future workforce. So what does that mean? It means that we want to be training up all of our staff, not just 1 or 2 staff, because we want to make sure that the work we do and deliver is trauma-informed and culturally informed, right? That's the kind of service we want to be able to deliver, so it's important that everybody have that mindset, have that training, have that support, and that supervision. We have 2 specific positions, but again, it's not just position specific because the training will be for everyone, but 2 of them that I did want to mention are multicultural specialist clinician and director of multicultural training program. What I'm particularly excited about with the director of multicultural training is that really gets to the future workforce. So there we're really thinking about what we know about health disparities and health outcomes associated with that. We want to make sure that we're helping to contribute to turning the curve so that future generations are thinking about the work this way, they're thinking about their interventions this way, and they're thinking about their practice this way. And we would be building up that workforce that then we can also share with our regional campuses as well, so we can really build capacity across the college community. And then finally, I just want to talk a little bit about JED Campus. So many of you, I'm sure, know that UConn is a JED Campus, which is a really, really cool thing. And this started a couple of years ago, and one of the things JED did, their national foundation, they came in and they did a full assessment of where UConn was. That meant 79 action items across 7 domains. So everything's from social connectedness to social isolation to life skills to policy, a range of different issues. And we've been continuing to work on that plan. Why this graphic is important is because it's one of our benchmarks. We pay close attention to whether or not we're moving the needle where we want to. And so right now what we're seeing, we're 59% in the green. What does that mean? It means that those are things that we have done and we continue to sustain and support as we go. In the yellow, those 37% are in progress, right? So one example of that is an educational campaign where we want to make sure that training, baseline training, is available to everyone, whether you're staff, whether you're faculty, whether you're students, that you all have access to that. So we have pieces of that right now. We're building that out to be more comprehensive. So that would be like in the in-process section. And then 4% is in the red. And those are some policy issues that we're working with JED on to say what's your interpretation of policy and how does UConn align with that so that we can make sure, again, great news is we're all paddling in the same direction, and the goal is to make sure that policies are aligned in a way that optimize support to students, particularly at times of distress. So that's what we're doing right now on JED. I can talk about any one of these topics forever, and I know I talked really, really fast, so I'm sorry. But I really want to thank you for having us here tonight, and really look forward to this being just the start of a conversation. And I will pass it off to Suzanne. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Honorado. I'm the Executive Director of Student Health and Wellness. And Christina, the Director of Mental Health. All mental health reports up through Student Health and Wellness. You'll meet Karen further down on the agenda. She's our Director of Health Promotion and Community Impact. That's part of Student Health and Wellness. And then you may have seen some of our medical team through the COVID testing, COVID vaccination. So all of medical, nursing, and pharmacy also reports up to Student Health and Wellness. So this is our vision. I can't read that, but I have my handy. So our vision, and it's really important, this is new about 4 or 5 years ago, is to cultivate optimal health and lifelong well-being for every this vision, it was really pretty much whoever walks in Shaw's doors. So if you come in for medical care, or if you come in for mental health, we had a vision that you would get exceptional care. So when we rewrote this vision, it really speaks to that public health model of thinking about the entire UConn community, whether you need to walk through our doors or not, and how do we create this culture of wellness. And you're going to be hearing a lot about that. I also wanted to say something in relation to what Christina said. USG actually is a co-partner with the JED Campus Initiative. It's the only university in the entire country that is a partnership between students and administration. So that was awesome. And so you have a representative on that committee. I think I know who it is, but the year changed, so I might be wrong, so we'll get that information to you. And then lastly about that, the JED Campus is also a public health model. So again, beyond providing exceptional care through the doors, which we strive to do, of course, we also want to create a campus that supports you and also gives you skills long after you graduate UConn. It's something you need to be successful here and past here. So pretty bold, but we really believe we're in alignment with what you were talking about today. All the ways in which the campus supports your health and how things like racism works against that. So how do we dismantle some of those barriers? So I'm here on behalf of Ron McLean. So after students came and spoke with the Board of Trustees, Ellie and I brainstormed a little bit about how can we meet some of the needs of the students in a unique way. And unfortunately, and Ron said I could share this with you, he was called out unexpectedly to a family emergency in Florida, but he would have loved to have been here. He started in January, and I'm going to ask whoever sets the agenda if we could invite him and Melanie in the future. But Ron started in January as our Director of Health Equity and Access to Care for all of Shaw. And repeating a little bit of what Christina said, we just don't want a few people who are skilled and trained at this. We want every single person who works at Shaw, and hopefully beyond that, but what I'm responsible for, to really understand how to be culturally sensitive and have cultural humility, in addition to creating a diverse workforce. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we just hired Melanie as our program coordinator about 2 weeks ago. So you'll be excited to meet with her as well. So more to come as we bring Ron in front of you, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Okay, the vision of the Shaw Health Equity and Access to Care Department is to strive for an equitable and accessible practice of care within Shaw that promotes human rights and dignity for all. And really, they've created, for this year anyway, our first year strategic plan. There's 3 core strategies, and Christina represented some of those as well. So we want to create processes that support hiring a diverse and inclusive Shaw workforce. And we came up with 7 strategies that I can explain, but really clear things like, so obvious things like trying to recruit in different kinds of places to get to a diverse workforce. But less obvious things like we have put in every single Shaw job description that you need to have experience and demonstrated experience working with a diverse community. So we want you to come to our team bringing some of that cultural sensitivity already. We also created different processes for our search committees, and we have different kinds of things in place that really look to, are we really reaching out to create a diverse workforce? There's so much more work to do. We want to partner with the School of Nursing, we want to partner with the School of Social Work to kind of really create a pipeline that brings in a diverse workforce. But to us, the way in which you get to reaching every UConn student and being a support for every UConn student is to have a fully culturally sensitive and a team with cultural humility that's constantly learning and growing and connecting. So it's not just Ron and Melanie doing this work, they're working with all of us at Shaw to teach us. And we don't want it to be like, go to that office to get that special need. We want it to be, how do we all connect in ways that are meaningful to our students and really informed. The other thing that we're doing is Ron and Melanie are bringing in different people, and they themselves are creating a lot of training opportunities, a lot of difficult conversations, to be quite honest. These are sometimes sensitive subjects and people get pretty defensive, so they've created an environment in Shaw that allows for us to explore things in ways that are kind of trusting and really trying to get at the core of things. So we've had a couple of forums and we're going to start doing some book clubs. We're going to have some guest speakers and really trying to kind of become familiar and comfortable with these conversations in order to create culturally sensitive practices and ways in which we can have those conversations with you. And then lastly, we want to, Ron and Melanie want to get right to you. They want to have conversations with you. They want to have different kinds of forums with you. They want to do different kinds of programming. Because really, we kind of work with our students who come to us, so we know who comes to us. We ask a lot of questions about their experience. But there are students who don't come to us. And so we want Ron and Melanie and people like me to come out and find out from you. Are there reasons why you don't come to SHOT? Are there barriers to access based on either things that, experiences that you've had or friends have had, or ways in which you're presuming we're not going to be there for you? Or are there cultural barriers and we need to present our kind of offerings in different ways that might reach out to you and might speak to you? So we're going to be coming and having good conversations, hopefully, with the UConn students. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. If I can answer them, I'd be happy to as we close out the session. And I'd like to introduce Ellie back up to the podium.
So I want to talk about mental health transports. And let me first say what that is. So transports are not something that we do every day, but we do them every week. And this is for a student who is in a position of crisis or concern where we are not comfortable walking away, where the student is in a position where we feel like an intervention is needed. According to Connecticut state law, those who are authorized to make those decisions to take you to the hospital are a licensed therapist, of which there's a very specific discipline that you need to fit within, as well as a police officer. And at UConn, we use both. The police are really important for after hours, but what we learned was that we really needed to take our time and to be consulting with each other as colleagues and with the students and with the community that's impacted as we make an increasingly significant decision on how to provide for student safety. So these are the uncomfortable times in mental health care that we are all collectively touched by and responsible for to some degree. And certainly the majority of that responsibility sits with the university on making a very tough decision for those students. So I led a subgroup. The report is also on that website that I gave you, and I want you to have time to read all of this as well. I led a subgroup, and that group was formed by clinicians, fire, who do our transports, police, who make these decisions, residential life staff who are on call and are summoned at times like these. It was a holistic, comprehensive group of individuals having one of the hardest conversations I think they've had at UConn. And what came from that was they care about you deeply and they don't want to make a mistake. But we have different degrees of expertise on campus, and we shouldn't isolate a colleague and have them solely make that decision. Does that make sense, what I'm presenting? So this is some data that we looked at, and it's really compelling. Tell me what you see in that. And I'll talk you through it as well, but I'd be struck to hear initially the impression of this data. What does this say to you? Mason, President. Yeah, so when UCTV is making the decision to transport, what's happening more often than not? Are you being admitted? Yeah, Mike.
They're not executing it themselves.
That's where we're going to go, to that very important point. But when UCPD is making the best decision they can make in comparison to a clinician, right? So what really matters is blue and red here. When UCPD is getting you to the emergency room for evaluation by licensed medical providers, those providers are saying you're okay, and they're discharging you from the ER. That's not a good experience for the student. It's well-meaning. These officers are doing the best that they can with the knowledge and skills that they have, but that's not the outcome we want. We don't want to be overly disruptive by bringing you to the ER when you're not in a crisis that can be managed. When Shaw makes the call and again, a different degree of expertise. Students are being admitted. They are moving through the ER into the inpatient care that they need. And that was a really important thing for the group to look at. And I want you to see it as well, because that was really a pivot point for us in saying we should never leave a colleague alone in making a hard decision. We should be giving that police officer access to that clinician as well as the student, as well as the staff that's on call, so we can make the right decision for a student in crisis. Does that make sense? So let's take some time to talk you through that report and the changes that we have made that are in place now, where we are already doing things differently. And with that, I'm going to turn that over to my colleague. That's a combination of colleague and Claudia, by the way, to talk you through those recommendations.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Dr. Claudia Arias, Associate Dean of Students and Director of Student Care and Concern. I have a brand new little office and I love it. I go by she or hers pronouns. I'd like to say that this mental health review group was an amazing experience for all of us. Like Ellie mentioned, UCPD, Fire, Res Life, Shaw Mental Health, and the Office of Student Care and Concern, and the Dean of Students Office were all involved in this group. We had several recommendations that we came up with, and I want to walk through them quickly with you, all of you. We talked about the on-call residential and mental health teams, that they should be working together directly with the police to determine if physical response is needed by the police. So you can imagine that if a student is distressed or depressed or traumatized or triggered by anything, especially by the police, if the police show up, it might be even more triggering. So we really need to make the best decision on when we need to have the police show up and work together for that. The other recommendation was every effort should be made by us to de-escalate, protect safety, obviously, and respect that an unnecessary police presence can unintentionally escalate the on-call response, as I mentioned. As you know, there may be students that may need to be transported because of something imminent or may not need to be transported, but we need to make a determination on what needs to happen when we get the call, to gather as much information as possible, make the correct call, and then make decisions in regards to that call. And then also police should always be utilized whenever there is an imminent risk of harm or stop. So we're not going to say police don't show up ever. We're going to say show up when there's actually imminent risk. When we know we can't take a time out to call a counselor or take a time out to call someone else. We need you there because it's a life-threatening situation. We're going to call the police, right? So that's not a question, and we want to make that very clear. When we talk about the new mental health transfer process that we decided that we were going to begin, we focused on having strong mental health being called for every mental health incident that happens in the residence halls. And the reason why we made this decision is because, if you can imagine, there could be a whole varied variety of things that someone's stressed or depressed or sad about. It could be they were intoxicated and got really sad. It could be that they're suicidal. It could be that they have a plan. It could be many things. So we are going to make sure our students get supported and able to contact and talk to a counselor before we make the call anywhere else. And that counselor is going to help us go through this with our students, right? With you all. UCPD will also be called for active or harmful threatening behavior. So obviously, like I said, if it's imminent, active, imminent, and it's happening in the present time that's threatening, we're calling the police. Residential life will contact Shaw Mental Health front desk during the day, right? And then on call at night when needed, right? So what happens is, and I'll walk you through this really quickly, I used to work in Res Life and now I work in this office, so it's easy for me to explain. If a student is in distress or depressed or needs some assistance, residential life will talk to the student, offer an on-campus, to walk them over the counseling if it's during the day, right? Offer an on-campus or talk to a counselor if they're on campus or on call during the day, or call a counselor on call at night in the evening hours. That student will talk to the counselor. At that point, the counselor will make a determination at that point how at risk the student is. If the student can wait for the next day for an appointment, they'll pull them right in for the next morning for an appointment and talk with the student. If the student has plans to harm themselves and is imminent, at that point, the counselor will then ask for a transport. Okay, so residential life will work with that student. And what's great about this process, which probably happened anyway, right? But we put in down on paper, is that we're really working with the needs of the student at the time of the need. So it could be that at that point that student is sad but not wanting to harm themselves and able to be able to talk to someone the next day. It also could be that student is not okay and we're getting emergency response. So we really need to make the right decision. But we need to do it in a very, very, very sensitive, supportive way. So we really are happy with this new process and it's working great for us right now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen McComb, and I'm the Director of Health Promotion and Community Impact. Thank you so much for listening so far. I hope we'll stick with it a little longer. We've been talking a lot about how we impact individual students that need support in the moment. We've talked a lot about how do we train individual students on how to support their well-being, to value well-being, give them those strong skills and strategies to support that not only now but into the future as well. And what I get to work on is upstream. I really get to work on your environment. So how do we create an environment that automatically supports every student? How do we create an environment in which everyone feels that they belong? How do we create an environment in which people care for other people, which we already do, but how does that move into action as well? And so one of the things we do is we need to do that together. This is not a job for just one department. It's not a job for just one person. We all need to work together to make that happen. And one way that we are trying to create that culture of care, that culture of belonging at UConn is through a wellness coalition. Right? So you can read here what the vision is for the Wellness Coalition. I like the mission. The Wellness Coalition implements interconnected strategies, creating a culture of care and responsibility to support lifelong learning and the well-being of UConn Huskies. So that interconnected part is really important because we are a big university and we're a big community. And we have a lot of activities going on in a lot of different places. And to be honest, sometimes the left hand might not know what the right hand's doing, but through a coalition, when you get people together in the same room, they learn about the web and the network of our community and can quickly refer students or just fix problems before they become crises. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to really connect people so that we all understand each other's experience. We know what's going on. How does the environment support you? How is it not support you? Maybe there's a policy. Maybe there's a garbage pickup in the middle of the night that's keeping you up. And we can work with someone about changing that schedule so that you can actually get some sleep. So that's a really small example. But there are things that happen in your environment through policies that we want to impact. And that's what the coalition does. Next slide. So this kind of shows like a socio-ecological model. So as individuals, you have a responsibility. As a friend, as a peer, you have a responsibility. As a classmate, as a cohort, you have a responsibility. And the institution and our community has a responsibility as well. So what we're really trying to do in the coalition is pretty much say community involvement leads to community impact. Some of you might have heard the phrase before, don't do nothing about us without us. And that's what this is about. We need your voices at the center of these issues because you are the closest to your experience. That might sound very basic and very simple, but that's why we want students, and we do have students involved across the coalition to really bring that student voice, that student experience, so we make sure that when we're coordinating, which takes a lot of work and a lot of energy, that we're actually focused on the right things. So that's what the coalition does across the community. And this is the structure of the coalition presently. We are guided by an advisory council who are actually the people who served on the President's Mental Health Task Force for Student Wellbeing. So they're so dedicated, they stayed on. They're big influencers on campus at both the student, faculty, and staff levels. And they help guide the different committees that we have. There are a lot of initials and acronyms up here, but it's the AOD Collaborative focuses on disrupting harm from substance use on campus, as well as creating a valid path for those who do not wish to use substances. They are linked to our UConn Recovery Community Advisory Council. The JED Campus Mental Health is the committee that Christina spearheads, and that's all about implementing the strategic plan that you saw her talk about before with the stop, white, the red, green, yellow action items. And they're also linked to the Suicide Prevention Committee on campus. We have a student engagement committee. So this started as an Innovate Wellness Lab. Again, we want student voices to lead the way. You know and have the ideas that are going to make a difference. So we have an Innovate Wellness Lab where students can come in, talk about their ideas, develop their ideas through the design thinking process, and we can help you get those ideas launched. about those ideas, about whether or not they'll work and who we might need to connect with to keep them going. And then one of the first things we did with the Wellness Coalition, and Suzanne and Dr. did a lot of this, was we talked to a lot of the deans of schools and colleges. We're like, what do you see? Like, what is your experience with student health and wellness? And they were so impressed about having the conversation, and they had so much to say that they wanted to stay involved. So we work with the schools and colleges to say, hey, there's another environment on campus that we need to work on. What's happening in the classroom, what's happening in the schools and colleges. What can we do to support faculty, staff, and students in that, to create a healthy community, no matter where they are. Very intuitive. Okay, so this just talks a little bit about the evolution of the coalition. It's 3 years old. We're going into the 4th year. And so basically it started as the alcohol and other drug collaborative coalition. And then we said there's more that we need to address. That's when it moved into a well-being coalition. That's when Gen Campus came on board and we started to do that assessment. And last year is when we really started to bring the whole structure together under the advisory council. And we're starting to set our goals for the next year. And get that last slide. And this is what we hope to do going forward. So now that we have we have 80 to 100 folks across campus, students, staff, and faculty that are involved in the coalition. Now that we have the different committees in place, we need to really be thinking about how do we communicate our work broadly. Because how many of you have heard of the Wellness Coalition? Yeah, so this is the problem. So that's why we're going to be working on communication this year, is because we need you to know that there are these mechanisms available. There are these people that are really working to change the culture on campus, and we want students' voices to be leading the way. We're going to put an assessment and a community impact team so that you will see metrics about how we're making a difference. And again, that major question is, do you feel that your campus supports your health and well-being? Do you feel that your campus really invests in your care and belonging, sense of belonging? We're going to be really working with Ron's team on how do we operationalize equity and throughout all of our committee processes so that every environment that a student comes into feels energizing, feels like you belong automatically, and that your voice is there to be heard. And then there is a movement internationally about a health promoting campus network. So there's a network in Canada, there's a network in New Zealand, there's a network in Australia, and we're just starting a network here in the US. And when we did the mental health task force, one of our founding documents was what's called the Okanagan Charter. We don't need to really remember that term, but it's all about infusing health and well-being into all aspects of our campus operations. And so we're going to explore whether or not we would like to be part of that growing network. Right now it's about 9 universities that has really committed and made some promises and made some action plans on how we are going to infuse health and well-being across our university. With that, I'd really like to thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand things back over to Ellie.
Thoughts? Questions? Anything? Because this matters to a lot of us. A lot of change. So, I mean, one of the things that also happened during COVID was all of this work. And to some degree, the benefit of COVID was it enabled us to really work faster in evaluating all of these processes and then beginning. And I want to say a lot of those positions Christina was talking about are new positions that the university funded for us and decided to. It is not enough, and the president knows that. And we will be following up more with sort of a second round of what additional staff positions do we need, notably clinical. But this is a very important step for us moving forward and not isolating the question of mental health to one department person appointment, whatever that means. Are we on the right path? What do you think? This is all about you and your constituents. I know you tell me if we were on the wrong path. Okay. Well, just know how much we appreciate you and the leadership roles you choose to take on, particularly now when I think we're all feeling a little anxious right now. Like normal is having mental health needs right now, and that's okay. And we are all welcome and cherished within this community. We just want to make sure we're getting the resources out there, we're adequately funding and supporting them, and they're available to you. So, as I said before, you can find us really easily. So if we need to talk privately in another settings, I'm happy to do that too. I know this is our collective commitment to ourselves and to each other. So let us know if we're
Jed is one of those stunning examples of USG and the university saying, we should do this together because we'll do it way better when we do it together. We're literally the only school in the country doing that. Just saying. All right? Great. I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for having me. You're awesome.
Thank you to,
She's a force of
thank you to
nature.
our wonderful speakers. Thank you for your presentation. We have another amazing speaker who will be coming up soon. For those of you who may not have met him yet, it is our Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Tewitt. So Dr. Tewitt, whenever you're ready, introduce yourself. Thank you for being here. And maybe a round of applause for Dr. Tewitt before he speaks. Yes, no. We're going to take maybe like a 2-minute break and then we'll be back.
So, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I was so moved by the rally today. And I was looking forward to participating and just being there brought me back. And I wanted to begin my comments by sharing a little bit about what I was going to say if I had a chance to address the crowd today. So, I was going to begin by thanking the organizers of this rally for Peaceful Planet, for stepping up to create space for students to protest for critical causes they believe in. Throughout my career as a student, a staff member, a professor, an administrator, I've had the privilege of being a part of some of this country's finest institutions, including this one. What they all had in common is that they had committed, courageous, caring students who exercised their voice to bring attention to critical issues facing their institution specifically and society more broadly. Now, I need to apologize in advance for having what some might call an elder moment, where I reminisce about their activism as a college student. But this past weekend, a classmate of mine sent me a picture of a letter I wrote back in 1986, yes, I'm aging myself, to the then president of Connecticut College. In that letter, I asked that the administration of Connecticut College work with us to improve the quality of life for current and future minoritized students on campus. I see today's rally in that spirit of collaboration, where UConn students are leading the way by not only engaging the administration, but engaging key stakeholders throughout the state and other student leaders at institutions throughout this nation. In doing so, you all belong to a cadre of student change agents around the globe who have been pushing for a more just and inclusive educational experience that is free of racism, prejudice, and discrimination. I want to applaud you all for your leadership, and more importantly, pledge to do what I can to make sure that your collective call for change and transformation is not ignored. Earlier this year, some of you may remember, specifically on January 18th, that members of the administration made the following commitments on behalf of the university in our ODI racial justice video. 1, to provide training that enhances managers and leaders' racial literacy and responsiveness to issues of bigotry. 2, to transform our university into an institution that is truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive across the entire system. 3, to create affirming, equitable, and inclusive communities across our university. 4, to build capacity to address racial injustice, to hold ourselves accountable for racial equity, and to enact a shared responsibility toward a UConn nation where Black lives matter. 5, to hire more diverse faculty and staff who have been and continue to be underrepresented and marginalized in higher education. 6, to enhance our curriculum to engage in issues of race and equity and social justice within and across disciplines, especially with a focus on anti-Blackness. 7, to support faculty in advancing their knowledge and skills on anti-racist and equity-focused teaching. And last, to confront systemic racism and achieve greater racial equity. So that commitment's been a part of what we've been trying to move within the past year. While I'm proud of these commitments and the others that were made today, I firmly believe that commitments are an important first step, but not enough. Our commitments must turn into transformative actions that make meaningful differences, meaningful material differences in the lives of UConn students. To that end, the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, including each of our amazing cultural centers and programs, and our team of dedicated professionals remain resolved to continue working with our colleagues across the institution. We will continue to do all that we can do to move UConn closer to becoming a more just and anti-racist institution. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I want to tell you just a little bit about the Office for Diversity and Inclusion. Next slide. Great. So, there you see the mission of the office. I'm not going to read it to you. But essentially the goal is to act as a capacity building infrastructure to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion across the institution. And the one thing I'll say about that is, yeah, we have a great team in ODI, but the team is not strong enough in and of itself to lift an entire system that is UConn. That we need everybody, students, faculty, and staff alike, to get involved in the work. We have a variety of initiatives and resources that we do out of the office. We provide affinity-based support to a variety of groups. We support DEI planning and development across the institution. We provide training, consultations, and yes, we offer a variety of programs. We operate with a budget of just under $5 million. And about 3.5 of those funds, 3.5 million of those funds are dedicated to the cultural centers. Yes, we can use more resources. Next slide. Here you get to see our org chart. We have about 23 professional staff members. Not represented here are more than 100 students, some of you in the room who work in our centers. Of the 23 professional staff members, 5 are on one-year contracts, so we'll have to reevaluate at the end of the year to see how we can renew those positions. This year, we'll also be adding 2 more positions, a Chief Diversity Officer for UConn Health and a DEI specialist that will work in the division of public safety. So that's our team. I like to say we bat way above our weight. And yes, we can use more help. Next slide. Last year, some of you may have heard that the university also had 3 strategic priorities that were driving how units were thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You've heard this both from Dr. Andy today and Provost Ledgway. We want to change the makeup of our workforce. We also want to create an ecosystem that confronts difficult truths, and promotes important conversations about race and identity. We've been facilitating a lot of those. And then we've also been adding training. Last year alone, next slide, we had 86 workshops that we provided, 2 senior leadership retreats where we focused on implicit bias, social identity, white fragility, and anti-racism. We also had over 350 consultations and sponsored 285 events. So that small, mighty team is doing a lot of production. Yet we can do more. This year, we have a set of strategic priorities that we're focusing on. They are to enhance and expand DEI student engagement, support, and development, to enhance faculty and staff's diversity, support, and development, to further expand and improve our DEI strategy, infrastructure, capacity, and planning, and to strengthen system-wide outreach and engagement and advocacy. Next slide. Some of those priorities or action steps include expanding support services to undocumented, indigenous, and Middle Eastern students. Some of you may be aware that we've added some programs and are building programming space to support those initiatives. We also want to continue to host a series of faculty town halls, specifically where we communicate with our BIPOC faculty about what we're doing to make the institution more inclusive and supportive of them. We will continue to engage our senior leadership in training and extend that down to middle management and to more professional staff across the system. And this year we're going to introduce in January, hopefully in collaboration with many of you, a system-wide diversity summit where we host a week of events focused around a common theme that we'll decide collaboratively. Actually, I think we already have that theme that was decided today. We also, in a couple of weeks, plan to launch a new university-wide diversity website where you can go to one stop, one place to find all of our DEI-related initiatives across the institution. So, that's a quick overview. Just want to tell you about our approach, and I'll close with that and take questions if you have some. We know that it's going to take some time to change the culture, to change the day-to-day ways in which the university goes about its business. Our approach to becoming a just and anti-racist institution involves reviewing and changing policies, practices, and structures. It involves increasing and retaining structural diversity. It involves focusing on improving the climate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It involves enhancing and expanding academic offerings focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it includes identifying and providing resources to support these initiatives. And I'll just end with where I started. I've never been part of an institution where it didn't engage in some real significant transformation without the support of students like you. I look forward to, our office looks forward to continuing to work and partner with you to make UConn the place that you have already dreamed it could be. We're not there, but I think together we can get there. And I'm not just saying that because I'm paid to do that. I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe we could do something about it. I had a lot of other options. But what made me come to UConn was knowing we had high, engaged, talented students leading the charge. So thank you all for the work that you're doing, for the work that you will continue to do. Appreciate y'all. Any questions? I know y'all are tired, it's been a long day.
Dr. Stewart, if students want to get in touch with you, how would you suggest they do so?
Best thing is to reach out directly to the Office for Diversity and Inclusion. happy to create some time and space to meet. And feel free to have me come back. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, so we actually will not have a funding staff presentation today, so you don't have to worry about that. That will come probably at the next Senate or at a future Senate. But given that we had two wonderful speakers and different groups that made a lot of excellent points today, if you have questions you'd like to reach out, I will send the information out via email. So don't worry, if something comes to you later, you'll get that email, you'll have their contact information. Dean Doherty also has a Dean of Students Advisory Group that you can join. It's open to any student, you don't need to apply, you can just go. So if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me, or you can reach out to her directly, and that totally works. As for our voting items, because we'll be moving out of public comments at the moment, we have reports, of course, linked on the agenda, so if you're curious about that, you can find them there. Voting items, we're just approving the minutes, so for everyone who's new, what that means is that we have lovely minute takers like Sophia in the back, Sophia, if you want to wave. So they take the notes on what we discuss and then send them out to everyone so that you know what happened at the Senate meeting. So we have to vote on those minutes at the beginning of each Senate, and because today we began the public comment, we're now voting on our minutes. It's pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is try to pass them by unanimous consent, which simply means that we're not going to put it to a vote. We're just going to ask if there are any objections to the minutes. And if you have an objection, you'll just raise your hand and we can then go into a more thorough vote. So, okay. All right, so all of you should be able to open it up from your individual laptops. If not, just reach out to me. But I'm going to motion to pass these minutes by unanimous consent. So we'll quickly move into any questions on the minutes. Going once, going twice. Yes, Abby. I can see if I can open them up. I'll see if I can open them up right now. Is that a question? Was that a question? Okay, so anyways, any questions on the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Any points of discussion on the minutes? Okay, so I'm going to motion to pass them by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? All right, seeing none, the minutes pass. And that brings us to the end of our voting items. So I know I don't have anything on the agenda for discussion, but there are a few items that we'd like to put in for announcements. The first is that we have a featured guest coming in that will be Dr. Vidal. So for those of you who don't know him yet, he is the new Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives Director that was hired. Dr. Tewitt just mentioned him in his presentation, so he'll be coming in to speak to us soon at a future Senate, so look out for that. I'll send out an email in advance so you know to look out for it. The next thing I wanted to bring up, and I know I didn't put it on the agenda, but it came up to me more recently, is that we had our rally today, so thank you to all of you who came. It was like really exciting, I think, to see so many new faces at the rally, and it was a really big success, so we're really happy that happened, and we're looking forward to getting to know all of you and seeing what kind of initiatives you want to bring to the table that we can then incorporate into student government, really bring to fruition. So in addition to that, I just wanted to mention that we will be having caucus next week. So for anyone who's new, the difference between Senate and caucus is that Senates are more formal, so we'll be meeting in here or in the ballroom, and they typically follow this format where we have an agenda and you sit out there, and we follow a more structured setting. But in caucus, it's a lot more casual. You get to know one another. We might do like bonding activities. So look out for that. It'll still be at 6:30 next Wednesday. We alternate between Senates and caucus bi-weekly. So next Wednesday will be our caucus, and if you have any specific questions, just reach out to me and I can answer them. I'd be happy to. I can hop on a call, I can give you my phone number, and we can text about it. So besides that, if you have any questions, you can come up to me afterwards. I realize in retrospect that I forgot to introduce myself to everyone who's new. So I'm the Speaker of the Senate. My name is Irene, and I will generally be chairing the Senates and the caucuses, and you'll see me with my Senate leadership team as that team grows. Now, we actually do not have any other members of Senate leadership right now. Our Senate leadership team is a one-person operation at the moment, but it will be growing. So what that means is that we will have a parliamentarian election within the month, most likely. If you're interested in running for parliamentarian, which essentially is the person who works with me to present the agenda, to go through parliamentary procedure, if you're interested in that, reach out to me. I will also send out an email about it as we figure out when that election will take place. It's an open election to anyone who is a senator, so it's also a paid position, so it's a win-win. So reach out to me if you're interested, and I'll also be hiring a deputy likely within the month or two. So that will be posted more formally as I solidify what the job requirements would be, and we'll open that up to be an open application process. So that's about it for announcements. Does anyone else have an announcement that they'd like to make? Oh, yeah, I see Ethan has his hand up. Do you want to come up to the podium?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And to those of you who are new, Ethan is our vice president. Yes, of course.
Hi, everybody. I'm very grateful to be here today with you all. As Irene said, my name is Ethan Horsler. I'm going to speak today very briefly on behalf of myself and also Mason Holland and our whole executive branch in the administration of USG. I can't wait for this year. It's going to be awesome. In previous years, there's been a little bit of tension between the Senate and the President and all that. And that's not going to be this year because we're all here for the same reason. And I'm excited to work with you all, and I hope everyone will. Or yes. Mason, want to come help me out? So I just want to say I'm very happy and excited for this year. There's so many things planned, and none of it can be possible without none of it could be possible without you all. Anyway, Mason, do you have anything?
Yeah, something, John, sorry about that. I was in the bathroom. Just so you know, I'm not leaving nobody. But first of all, it's really, I know I can speak for everybody who's been to a Senate before last year, and it was online. To see people in person, to feel your energy, to see your faces, it really means a lot. And to the people who just got here, the people who just elected, the people who came back after being gone for a while, you're appreciated and welcome. Because it's amazing to see people get involved. It's amazing to see people who may not have really engaged with USG initially to finally come around and see what it can do. So it's awesome to really have you guys here. And I also know that you guys know that this whole board up here, there's more of us, but this whole board up here, we're receptive to anything you guys have to tell us. Our titles and our positions, yeah, it means we have to make certain decisions. It means, we can speak to certain people maybe quicker than you guys can, but it doesn't mean that your opinions mean any less than ours do. It doesn't mean you mean less than we do. We are all equal here. Our opinions are taken the same. So if you have anything you want to tell us, anything you want to ask, any pieces of legislation you want to bring forward, or really anything you have an idea about to make this org and this campus better, we will be receptive to it. And that's why you're here. We want to embolden you. We want to embolden you guys. We do not want to impede you or get in your way. Now, not to say we won't have disagreements, we won't always be on the same page, but that's the nature of what we do here. We're advocates. We feel very strongly about the sides that we take, the issues that we take up, the initiatives that we're a part of. So understand that while you're here, this is not just your board, this is your family. That's how I want it to feel for you guys. And again, if you ever need to come to us, if you ever have questions, comments, concerns, we'll always be receptive. Our office just got remodeled, finally got our furniture, so come in, please say hi. We're also going to be sending out an email next week to meet with all new senators, so be on the lookout for that. But really, thank you guys for being here. Much love to you guys. And it's awesome to have you guys here as part of this. Welcome back and welcome. Thank you.
Michael had something he wanted to announce.
Hello, I'm just going to announce something really quickly. Also, hi, my name is Michael Christie. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the Student Body Chief Diversity Officer. On October 24th, there's going to be a USG retreat in which your lovely speaker has mandated that all senators need to attend. At that retreat, the reason why it's mandated is at that retreat, there's going to be a sexual harassment and prevention training in which all of you are required to take. So on October 24th, I'm going to be sending out emails in the next coming days about that. That will be happening. The retreat's going to be happening at Ellington Cottage on Depot campus. We're working on transportation right now. We'll also be working on food. We're going to be getting Oriental, which is Chinese food for vegan options as well. So yeah, just wanted to say that. And also, I'll be sending out an email tomorrow to start scheduling one-on-ones if you're a new senator with me, as well as some of the people on the diversity team. Thank you.
Anyways, so yes, to echo Michael's sentiments, we will be having a retreat. I'm sorry that it's mandatory, but you need to engage in the training. And we think it's a great opportunity for all of you to connect and get to know one another outside of this very formal setting of Senate. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. I also am scheduling one-on-ones with only incoming senators. Now, if you are not new to USG, you can definitely schedule with me, but I'm not going to require it because I know you're all super busy. So it's just for people who are new to USG. There's a spreadsheet. If the times don't work for you, reach out to me and we can figure it out on our own. I'm going to stick around after Senate, so if anyone has questions or you just want to come and say hi, feel free to do so. And we're going to call the close at 7:40 p.m. on Wednesday, October 6th. So thank you all for coming.